So, after 15 weeks of covering Doctor Who, we are finally at the end with the 15th Doctor played by Ncuti Gatwa, the current Doctor to be fair. And honestly, I have quite a lot of feelings when it comes to his current only season of the show, so I won't beat around the bush too much and we'll get straight into it. So, I feel like I just need to say right off the bat, I'm just going to call this Series 14 because that's what it is. I'm fine with calling Series 1 Series 1 because that's what it is. It's a reboot, it's a refresh, yada yada yada. This just follows on from Series 13 and the anniversary specials. So, I'm just calling it Series 14. I know that'll annoy some people since the marketing and stuff is all Season 1. I also know it'll annoy some people I'm not calling it Season 40. But it's Series 14. That's just what it is. And although there was a lot of build-up when it came to this season, there was a lot of mixed stuff, like when it came to Russell himself writing pretty much all the episodes, as well as only getting 9 episodes, including the Christmas special. Now, I definitely understand a lot of those criticisms, especially for 9 episodes. It does not feel long enough, but I'll get into that as I go. However, like I said in the previous one, I quite like Russell. He's influenced a lot of stuff for me, like when it comes to my sense of humour and all that. So, I honestly quite like the writing of this season, but there are definitely a lot of issues, a lot of tiny things, mostly down to that runtime. But let's get straight into it and cover Ncuti's current first and only series to date, until later on next year. The Church on Ruby Road is honestly quite a good start in my opinion. It introduces the new Doctor in a really good way, as well as the brand new companion with Ruby, brilliantly. I love all the cheesy stuff when it comes to the goblins. It's just straight my cup of tea when it comes to Doctor Who. Weird alien / maybe not anymore kind of monsters that are just completely silly, kind of throwaway, but still kind of entertaining to watch. The musical number I quite enjoy. I think it's really damn fun. And I honestly really enjoy the whole plot when it comes to Ruby's feelings. I love her mum, I love her grandma. All of it is honestly amazing. My main issue when it comes to the Church on Ruby Road is honestly its ending. It feels kind of rushed. A lot of stuff just seems to be tied up very quickly. The goblins go back in time to take Ruby. The Doctor then goes back in time to stop the goblins. And they also mentioned that his glove only had like 4% power, but they only used it for like 30 seconds. And then he was able to use the 4% for a minute to pull down the ship. But overall, I actually really enjoy this one. It's an 8 out of 10. It's great. Space Babies is the first proper episode of the season, but to be honest, the Church on Ruby Road is essentially episode 1. And it's fun. Is it great? Hell no. Very far from it. This episode has a multitude of problems when it comes to stuff like tone, especially when it comes to the plot, is ridiculously rushed. The Space Babies looking like the Baby Genius movies from the 90s and 2000s is disturbing on every account. But everything else I actually quite enjoy. This episode was really funny in my opinion. I love the comedy episodes, as you might have seen from some of my previous stuff, and they make me laugh. This episode makes me laugh a ton. But it does have so many issues, especially when it comes to the plot. It feels ridiculously rushed and way too childish at times, but then occasionally we'll just have moments of pure horror. The ending is also, once again, not the best. It feels a bit forced, but I still had fun with it. I'll give it a 6 out of 10 just because I find it funny, but hopefully the writing improves from now on. The Devil's Card feels like a weird compromise when it comes to Doctor Who. A lot of fans are clamouring for a musical episode, myself included, and there's also a lot of fans who are not the biggest fan of musicals, so aren't really interested in it, to which, fair enough, each to our own. I feel like The Devil's Card tried to do both things at once, be both a musical episode and a non-musical episode, and in my opinion, I think it pulled it off really well. Yes, the musical number at the end is a bit weird, but I enjoy it. I honestly adore this episode. It is probably my favourite of the series, and if I'm being completely honest, and my favourite so far of Gatwa's. I just really enjoy it. It's fun. Jinx Monsoon is amazing. I love the Doctor and Ruby's chemistry throughout the episode. All the musical stings, especially like when Ruby's playing the piano on the roof. Everything involving Maestro just being a cheesy villain, amazing. I literally only have one problem with it, and it is that song towards the end just feel a bit forced. But even so, I think this episode's amazing. Controversial, but it's a 9 out of 10. Boom marks the grand return of Stephen Moffat, who hadn't been seen since series 10, and yeah, this is definitely a Stephen Moffat script. It's got his kind of fun, not exactly edgy dialogue, but much more direct, sassy, very snappy dialogue, something that Moffat's always been amazing at. I love Ruby and the Doctor in this one. I think this really shows how much the two actors had amazing chemistry out of every episode so far, and honestly, even after this, it just works really well and all that. I love the fact the first half only really includes those two characters for most of it. Then all the stuff later on where it's just constant chaos escalating over and over and over again to an absolute breaking point of tension is perfect. My main issue honestly comes once again, as kind of a trend with this season. The ending feels very rushed, very sudden, very anticlimactic, but still overall I think this is a great episode and an 8 out of 10. I am looking forward to more from Moffat. Seven and 3 Yards is honestly one of the standouts of this season. A dark psychological thriller for most of it, with some good political drama thrown in there for good measure. I've always had a mixed feeling when it comes to Doctor Light episodes. Some of them are my favourite of all time, with stuff like Turn Left, whilst some of them are Love and Monsters. So with this one, I was very cautious when I went in, and honestly, I adore it. I think it's amazing. I love all the political satire in the second half. I love the gothic folk horror for the first half. And honestly, this episode made me immediately love Ruby as a companion. I already really enjoyed her, as I stated in the past 4 episodes, but Millie Gibson's performance throughout this really shines. And it does suck that she was only in it for like a minute, but if that's the trade-off, I'm happy to take it. My main issue, honestly, is that this episode should have been an hour long instead of 45/50 minutes. That needs more time to breathe. But even so, amazing episode, 9 out of 10. Dawn Bubble is the second Dr. Light story in this season, and I understand that this episode definitely has a lot of fans, but for me, this is the dud of the season. I have an issue just with myself when it comes to media, and that's despisable characters being followed. I can't watch something like Always Sunny in Philadelphia just because I can't stand watching detestable characters. And I'll be honest, Lindy is one of the most detestable I've ever met. She's annoying, she's whiny, she's just irritating to look at, and since she is essentially the main character in this episode, it just drives a lot of fun out for me. Now, don't get me wrong, the actress does an incredible job with what she's given, but the lack of Shooty and Millie throughout the episode until the end is really annoying. The saving grace for this episode is generally the last 10 minutes with Shooty. It's incredible. He's immediately the Doctor. I think his Doctor moment came much sooner than a lot of other actors, and it's in this episode. So, I'll give it a 5 out of 10, and honestly, I think I'm being a bit generous. Rogue is one of those fun little historical romps which aren't really important in the grand scheme of things. There's a lot of fun romance when it comes to this, which honestly reminds me a lot of Ten and Madame de Pompadour, probably because of a Regency era, and I kind of like it. My main issue with this episode is honestly Ruby. She doesn't do anything. I get that obviously with 73 Yards being Ruby's episode, this one is much more of a Doctor episode, and it works really well for that. And honestly, everything else I find really fun. It's just a fun, silly Doctor Who episode. There's nothing overly important about it. The ending is quite emotional. All the stuff to do with the Cholder, I'm honestly quite a fan of. I think they're a fun, instant classic Who villain. They're just stupid in every single way that Doctor Who villains should be. I enjoy watching them. Vera Farmiga is honestly incredible. But yeah, overall it's good. It's just a standard classic Doctor Who episode set in the past. 7 out of 10. So for this two-parter, I'm just going to quickly get off the bat. Legend of Ruby Sunday is a 10 out of 10. It's amazing. Sutek's return generally gave me goosebumps throughout that entire scene. It's scary, it's funny, it's sci-fi, it's everything Doctor Who should be. The second half is where a lot more controversy comes, and honestly, the first 45 minutes of Empire of Death is as good as the first half, in my opinion. All the depressingness, all the misery, even all the characters dying, even though you know they'll come back in some way. Miserable, and I love it for that. The woman with the spoon, genuinely incredible scene, in my opinion. Ruby's mum, with the last 10 minutes, yes, is disappointing. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, it's not a good reveal. It's kind of bad. And it definitely doesn't feel like what the season built up to. It just feels anticlimactic for no reason. I love the idea, it just doesn't work. But I think people forget that the first 45 minutes of it are amazing too. Yeah, I had to give it a controversial 9 out of 10. Sutek's return gave me chills, something that's not happened since Series 10. And that's Series 14. Yeah, I honestly really like this series. I understand why some people have a problem with it when it comes to the supernatural elements, and a lot of the more cheesy flamboyancy of it, and that is completely understandable. I get why some people don't like the season. I don't agree with it personally, but I completely understand why someone wouldn't. This is definitely one of the most experimental seasons. Every episode feels completely different from the previous one. There's not really any two-parters until the finale, which does annoy me, and the 9 episodes is way too short. I think, honestly, when it comes to doing Doctor Who, when it comes to production, compared to episode releases, I think Jodie's era did it best, with 1 special and 10 episodes. I think that works perfectly for both filming time, writing, etc., and getting enough content out. But as you can see from my ratings, there's only a couple of duds for me. Space Babies has a lot of issues, but I still find it funny. Rogue is just a fun little blast from the past, but it's not on bubble, is my problem. I just find it very mixed. There's so many good parts, there's so many bad parts. And yeah, if we change it over to rankings, I know for a fact that me putting the 2-part finale this high is probably against from what most people would do, and that is completely fine. Like I've always said throughout this, the main thing that I love about Doctor Who is that everyone has a different opinion on it. Some people will find Fear Her the worst episode of the modern era, like I essentially do. Whilst for some other people, it'll be one of their favourite episodes. And that's the beauty of Doctor Who. I am sorry that not everyone loves this season as much as I do, but that's what the show is. I can't wait for Series 15, and I'm genuinely counting down the days till that's Christmas special. I'm so excited. And changing it over. But yeah, sadly this is all we have so far. 9 episodes with 8 stories. I was tempted to put the Pyramids of Mars re-edit on here, but there's literally like a minute of footage with Shooty and Millie, so there's no point. I also forgot to mention Bonnie Langford in my Legend of Ruby Sunday and Empire of Death thing. She's amazing. I hate her in the classic era, as a lot of you will know. With this, she's amazing. She has redeemed her character so well with last year's anniversary specials and when it comes to Shooty's first series. But yeah, sadly that's all I've got for you. If you do enjoy this stuff, please be sure to like, share and subscribe. And next week is an editor's nightmare. I'm genuinely working on it at the same time, and yeah, it's gonna be a long one. But I'll see you all then. Toodles!